Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Bragan, and I run product at ClickHouse. And today I'm here to talk to you about what's happening in the world of data warehousing and why I believe that one size can no longer fit all when it comes to data warehousing and why we need a real-time data warehouse. In the end, I'm going to talk about the critical role that ELT and ETL platforms play in this shift. But first, a bit of a history lesson. When it comes to this space of data warehousing, it depends on who you ask, but it started off about 30 years ago when businesses realized that they were running a lot of different systems and all these systems had individual databases. But when a business needed to make decisions, they couldn't because the data wasn't in one place. So a data warehouse became a very critical system where businesses centralized all of their data and thus decision making. And you'll see some names that you recognize here: IBM, Oracle, Teradata, eventually Hadoop as an open source alternative for traditional data warehouses. But they were all running on-prem. This is just how the world was back then. And about 10 years ago, when companies started to shift many of their workloads into the cloud, data warehousing was no exception. And this is where Snowflake, Redshift from AWS, and BigQuery from GCP helped organizations take these workloads and shift them into the cloud. But the nature of the workloads has not changed. They were still fairly batch-oriented in the way they loaded data, and the workflow itself and the apps themselves were honestly just glorified report builders, right? They would schedule a report, run a report, it would eventually get delivered, just now running in the cloud. But a bigger thing happened from our vantage point that I'm really excited about. Really, because these systems were now in the cloud, they were exposed to a lot broader ecosystem when it comes to integrations and a lot more flexibility for developers to use this data in new use cases. And a lot of experimentation started happening around what could you use this cloud data warehouse for? So at the same time, again, if you think about the nature of the applications that were built 30 years ago versus now, it's very different. So another shift was happening in the world of the type of applications that we all build and consume as professionals. And when it comes to these applications, I'm a product professional. As an example, I rely on applications from marketing and sales domains. I need to see how my cloud service operates. And the nature of the applications that I rely on is very different from product managers from 10 and 20 and 30 years ago. I need to see fresh data as well as historical data, and I need to be able to ask questions in real time. So these interactive and data-driven applications, I would say, are eating the world right now in every industry and every profession. And again, you can see some of the vertical and industry names here. You can see some of the logos. All of these companies are building and relying on real-time applications. So what happened was there was this exciting shift in both places. These big workloads are now running in the cloud. These applications are eating the world. So developers started to say, well, why not use a cloud data warehouse to build these interactive data-driven applications? Why not? Indeed. And so they tried. And unfortunately, they ran into some fundamental challenges in terms of this workflow working on top of a data warehouse. The first obstacle they hit was delayed data ingest. A data warehouse optimizes for multiple groups and applications downstream. So they are hyper optimizing for these multiple consumers. And as a result, their data pipelines are quite staged and complex and multi-layer. And it results in frequently multi-hour, even day delays in some cases to get workloads in. Very batch-oriented, very staged. This doesn't work for a real-time application. I don't want to ask a question on stale data. I need up to the minute sometimes information to make effective decisions. If they could get through this hurdle, the next thing that they noticed was slow queries. And this has to do for two reasons. One is the data itself in a data warehouse is often denormalized, relational in nature, and relies on fairly expensive joins to get the answer, which is not feasible in all cases for real-time applications to do these joins. Again, this was a different world that these systems were built in, where the disk space was constrained, and so everything was optimized for saving the disk space. Now the situation is very different, right? We have storage is relatively cheap, and if anything, again, compute is expensive, and so the queries themselves can run a lot faster in a real-time system that's optimized for fast responses. But this is not what the users were getting in a cloud data warehouse. And same with query concurrency. Back 10, 20 years ago, the number of people asking questions was smaller often. The people that had access to information numbered in, the ones and tens. And now we're talking about hundreds and thousands of users, certainly for external applications, but even internally, many more of us are asking our internal teams for access to critical data. So when they tried to address all of these three first challenges with the cloud data warehouses, they just kind of would throw more resources at the problem, but then they would run into an issue of skyrocketing costs. You may have heard recently debate around Instacart and their Snowflake spend. That's not an exception. That's more the rule in the industry right now. So this is happening across the board. The question is what to do about it. And increasingly, our customers are arriving at a conclusion that what they still need a data warehouse. Let's be frank, the amount of data that we're all relying on just continues to grow, and we still want access to it. Ideally, all of it, right? Both continuously loading and historical data up to years. So we still need a data warehouse, but perhaps a real-time data warehouse where highly interactive patterns of queries with complex filters and aggregations still work at high concurrency rates. And you get these responses in sub-second, millisecond time. And so this idea of a real-time data warehouse at the center of both your internal and external apps is what they're starting to architect toward. Now, these systems may still be connected to other sources of data for batch-oriented workflows. This is where we're seeing, frankly, more of a shift toward data lakes. So using object stores to just store this data that still needs batch-oriented access to it. But maybe you still keep a traditional data warehouse around. That's fine, right? You can architect it in many ways, but a real-time data warehouse is a must if you are building or relying on these real-time applications. And we believe that ELT and ETL platforms that bridge the old and new worlds are critical in this shift. And supporting ability to move data from a real-time data warehouse to a data lake, or in some cases, if you're migrating a new use case from a legacy system, the reverse is very important. And we believe that open ELT and ETL platforms that support a broad set of emerging real-time technologies will win during this shift. And this is why we're so excited about the role that Airbyte is playing in this space right now, this this shift that we're calling really the unbundling of the cloud data warehouse. We're excited about the partnership, and we'll see a lot more of this in the next year, we believe. If you would like to learn more, we have recently published a blog on this topic, the unbundling of the cloud data warehouse. And if you would like to contact me personally, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Medium. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.